All right, welcome everybody to SLAM School, brought to you by the Studies of Literacy and Multimedia Assembly of the National Council of Teachers of English. That is a real mouthful of a title. I'm going to have everyone introduce themselves. My name is Antero Garcia. I'm an assistant professor at Stanford University. Nicole, from my left to right, Nicole, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Nicole Mira. I'm a former high school English teacher and currently an assistant professor of English education at the University of Texas, El Paso. And I'm the new vice president of SLAM.
Excellent. Robin?
Hi, all. I'm Robin Seglum. I'm a former high school and middle school English teacher, and I am an associate professor at Illinois State University and the current president of SLAM. Welcome.
Excellent. And Shelby?
Hi, everybody. I'm Shelby Whitty, Associate Professor at Oklahoma State University. It's a windy day in Oklahoma, so if you hear wind chimes, that's what that's from. I'm looking forward to learning with all of you.
Awesome. Thanks, Shelby. And we might have a couple other SLAM members joining in. So to be a part of the Hangout, it is a SLAM member privilege. And so if you are interested after today in being a part of SLAM and learning more about it, head to our webpage, SLAM.education. And we hope to see you all there. But to get started, I want to introduce what SLAM School is. And if you are in the US or even globally, you have seen that the threat to public education is moving swiftly, particularly if we think about the confirmation of Betsy DeVos yesterday, a bill introduced today to shut down the US Department of Education into Congress. We can think through all of these policies in addition to the kinds of harm that we're seeing to our society and to the students in our classrooms, and the real senses of fear, alienation, and uncertainty for profession and for the kinds of healing that needs to happen in our classrooms. Thinking about all of this, I know I've personally been sitting in front of a computer and feeling really frustrated and wondering what else I can do in addition to being a part of marches and protests and contacting people. And I figured this is an opportunity, along with the rest of the SLAM leadership, for us to use our skills as literacy educators, as classroom teachers, as teacher educators, to think about the skill set that we have. So what we plan to do is every 2 weeks, in about 20 or 30-minute increments, go over a single tool that we can use either in our classrooms or outside of our classrooms or both. And kind of tackle how we could use that tool particularly for political resistance and activism, and for engaging in conversations around those topics with our students. So today's topic, if you're just tuning in now, is Twitter. Many of you who might be watching this live might be very familiar with Twitter, but if you're not, this is an opportunity to think through how to use Twitter as a tool for political purposes, and more than just getting frustrated at how national policy is dictated on Twitter now, or other people sharing what they had for breakfast. So in a moment, I'm gonna screen share and go over how I use Twitter and what it looks like. But before I do that, I don't know if anyone else on the Hangout wants to chime in on the larger purposes of SLAM.
Just real quick, if there's anybody out there that has things they'd like to see us explore on SLAM School, we want this to be a community for educators, by educators. So we hope that you'll join us with SLAM and contact us about other sessions that you'd like to see us do.
Perfect. Thanks, Nicole. So I am sharing my Twitter screen. You'll see I am following, the first thing you'll see when you go to twitter.com, I am following 1,400 people, which means that you will see it is a noisy and quickly moving space. So at any given time, you're going to see things related to gaming research I'm involved in, and you're going to see things related to music journalists I follow and to politics. I apologize in advance for any kind of embarrassing content that will show up here that just reflects my own nerdy interests, right? I've made a deliberate choice that my Twitter reflects all of my things. I don't have separate accounts. I have my own account. So when I look at Twitter, this is what the homepage looks like. You can see I've gotten 11 new tweets since we visited it. You can see the number of times I've tweeted. You can see the number of people I am following, and you can see the number of people following me. We can use these as metrics in the ways that we want. If you have a perfect ratio of following and followers, that might say something. I'm not really worried about the numbers here, other than If someone is following thousands of people and has no followers behind them, we might want to think about if they are a bot, right? And the kinds of, so if we know of hundreds of thousands of the people following the Donald Trump account are bots and are not actual people, we can think about that in relation to the paid protesters that are allegedly filling our streets right now, right? So we can think through where digital labor is taking place. Okay, so when you create a Twitter account, if you've never created a Twitter account, you will not have a profile picture like mine. Also, if you're not me, you probably shouldn't have my profile picture on your Twitter account, just as a heads up. Instead, the first time you create a Twitter account, your profile will have an egg. And that is also a useful media literacy tool to think about when you're looking at people's Twitter accounts. If they just have an egg as their profile picture, it means they are a new person and have not yet changed their picture. So if you've created an account, I would suggest that something you do quickly is to either put up a picture to represent you or some kind of avatar, something to differentiate who you are, right? One of our SLAM members here, I can see Anna Smith. This is what Anna Smith generally looks like in real life. And this is a useful tool for me to recognize who she is as a person. You can also put a very short biography and one link and one location that you are connected to. And you have a background image, right? So this is where you create your profile picture for Twitter. Anything on the profile side that I'm forgetting? Other hangouters? Okay, great. I was taking a sip of coffee. No one would know it. Okay, so what is Twitter if we go back to the homepage? Twitter is what we make of it, right? So as I said, I have messy things all over Twitter, and we can think about all the different kinds of interests that are a part of the people I follow. But for our purposes right now, I think Twitter can be an organizational tool. Twitter can be a means for building a community, and Twitter can be a place to voice activism and resistance. But to do that, we need to be intentional about who we follow and how we do that. So first thing I want to talk about is how you create a tweet, how you do stuff with tweets, and how you find other people and other communities to follow in Twitter. I think those are the three things I'm hoping to accomplish in the next 10 to 15 minutes. So the first thing you're going to do if you ever want to send a tweet is in this box where it says what's happening. You're going to click there, and that's where you're going to write what's happening. So for example, right now, I'm talking about how to tweet for, I'm going to use a hashtag and we'll revisit the hashtag later, SLAM.edu school. Oh man, typing fail live on a Hangout. How embarrassing. And then I would put the link to the Hangout in here, but I don't have it quickly on hand, so I'm just going to send that tweet. And that goes out into the world. You can see it shows up on my, my timeline. And later on, you can see that so far, probably nobody has looked at this tweet. We can look at our analytics. It's not making a big impression because no one else is looking at that tweet. That's okay. I'm not really worried about that. That's the easiest way you use Twitter, right? You type in the box and you click tweet and then you're done. Most people know you are limited to 140 characters. You can see below that you can put in images and other things. We'll get to that in a minute. But that's the real basic. You type in, you hit tweet, done. I should note that this is what the basic web page looks like. There are lots of other ways to access Twitter. I use TweetDeck. It's not an endorsement. It just seems like an easier way to organize lots of different kinds of conversations. I would encourage you to put Twitter in whatever kind of form you want on, download an application, put it on your phone. I use the official Twitter iOS app. I think it's sufficient. There are lots of other ones. You can give people lots of money for them. But this is good enough, right? But what makes a good tweet, right? I think a good tweet is informative, right? So if we look at the one I just sent, it tells you what I'm doing. It gives you a hashtag if you wanted to engage in more information. We could see if other people are talking about SLAM.edu. We'll get back to that in a second. And usually a good tweet can also give you more information to follow, right? So you can see, so for example, NCTE, National Council of Teachers of English, they gave information on today's event. They have an image of it, and we can see that other people have liked and shared this information, right? When you look at an individual tweet, a couple of things that are useful to think about, where it has the timestamp down here, this is a URL that never goes away, and it's actually this URL up here in the address bar. I can't tell if my address bar is visible for other people. I'm getting a nod. Okay, it is. So this is the link where, for example, if you are like me and need to frequently cite tweets in an APA citation, you are going to use that URL and share it, because it is as permanent as things are on the internet if that tweet isn't deleted. And again, to get to that, you're going to use the timestamp down here. So that's great. You will be able to send information through the homepage. Links are a useful thing to put in there, because again, you're going to start shorter conversations. You never know what you're going to get on the homepage. It's very entertaining. So you're going to be able to start conversations on Twitter, but it's not the end of places, even with chats. So you're going to want to use this as a place to send people to other kinds of information. But I want to talk about how you engage in conversations. I'm going to ask Nicole if you can send a tweet, and I'm going to hopefully try to capture it in real life. Maybe give us a thumbs up, or yeah, let us know when you've sent it.
I am sending the tweet now.
Dun dun dun! I can't believe the tension. All right, I found it. 4 seconds ago, you sent it. And so I'm going to click on it just so you can look at it up close. Nice work, Nicole. I am deliberate and afraid of nothing. Audrey Lord. It looks like there's a couple of hashtags on here, and some other people that are connected to this using the @ symbol. So the first thing to know is the reason I was able to see Nicole's tweet is because I'm following her. You can see it says following. So we're going to look at how to find people and follow them in a little bit. But for now, the first thing I want to do is say, hey, Nicole, nice job. Congratulations. I really like that tweet. Even though it sounded really sarcastic, I do actually like your tweet. So I want to retweet this to the rest of the people on my timeline. I'm going to hit retweet, and it goes out to everybody else. This will now show up on my timeline, but it'll still show as Nicole's tweet. Right? That's one thing I can do. The next thing I can do is I can, whoops, yep, I undid it. I'm going to, instead of retweeting it, I'm going to add a comment. I'm essentially going to quote Nicole's tweet and say, nice tweet, Nicole. Doesn't have to be poetic. Should probably say something better than that. And when I tweet that, it was posted. So we can look here, and you can see what it looks like here, right? It shows my tweet, nice tweet, with Nicole's within it, right? So I want to point to, there's two different kinds of ways to share back what someone else said. You can retweet it, right? Or you can add a comment and quote their tweet, essentially. I see that there's someone wanting to know more about TweetDeck, and we'll come back to that in a moment. The last thing I can do is, if I go back to Nicole's original tweet, I can reply to her. I can also like it, so I see someone liked it. Maria, a former and favorite student, liked Nicole's tweet, and so I'm also going to like it. When I like it, it shows a validation, right, of the tweet. It is what like sounds like. And an aggregation of those tweets can push things up in different kinds of conversations. What I can do is right now I can either hit this reply button, or I can type a reply down here. You can see it auto-populates down here with Nicole and the person that she wanted, Mitch McConnell, in her tweet. So if I wanted to write back to both of these people, I would just type back, that's right. I'm setting the bar very low for the kinds of content you could be tweeting, I realize. The problem with the reply I just did is the only people that are going to see it are, that's going to show up in their timeline, are people that are following both myself and Nicole, right? And the reason is that's just how Twitter is set up right now. So instead, if I want to reply to this and make sure that everybody sees it, right, I want to make it a public reply. Usually what you're going to do is you're going to put a period. This is a convention you'll often see on Twitter. You'll put a period in front of the name, or a word, right? So you insert it. So basically so that the @ symbol isn't the first part of the tweet. So I'll say, hey, and say, hey, Nicole, or I would put a period. I don't need Mitch McConnell to be a part of this conversation. Really appreciate your tweet. I hope I realize I'm sounding really sarcastic. I'm sure the people who aren't watching this right now are very confused with if Ontario has just had a meltdown after a long day of work. I'm not sure what's happening. So again, it's important to, if you want to reply and make sure other people are seeing that reply, you'll put a period in front of it. If I just want to reply to Nicole and I don't need it to be private, then I would just reply regularly, and I would probably delete the people who don't need to be part of that conversation. I could also send Nicole a private message through messages. I don't use messages very often. I clicked the wrong thing. That's great. And I would just hit a new message. You're less constrained by the kinds of the lengths that you'll put in here, but you can only send messages to people that follow you and that you follow back, right? So that's an important thing to think about of who's in your direct messages. You can change that, but that's basically what you're going to do. Anytime other people are engaging with your tweets, it's going to show up in your notifications up here. A notification shows if other people are liking your tweets, are retweeting your information, are speaking to you, or are following you, right? So I can see there's a change the narrative person who's inviting us to join their organization, and we can look at the tweets here, and we can look through the information. So let's talk a little bit about hashtags really quickly. So I'm going to go back to the tweet from Nicole because I want to use that as a place to look at. So Nicole used the hashtag she persisted. Nicole, you want to give us a little bit of information on what this is related to, maybe for historical information for people who aren't watching this live?
Sure, and this also relates to what you'll see on your homepage if you decide to follow trends that are happening in your city. You can actually put in Los Angeles or New York or anywhere you're living to see what's trending in your area. And a lot of times what is trending is hashtags. And that's where someone the conversation to continue and wants to create a conversation around a certain topic. And hashtags are a way to organize the craziness of Twitter into a particular conversation about a topic. The she persisted hashtag is taking off across Twitter because of something that happened last night when Senator Elizabeth Warren was attempting to give her opinion about why she was not supporting Senator Jeff Sessions' nomination for Attorney General. She began reading a letter that Coretta Scott King had written back in the 1980s against Jeff Sessions' nomination to the federal judgeship. And at the time, the Senate basically censured her and told her that she was impugning the character of a senator and forced her to sit down based on the rules of order of the Senate. And when Mitch McConnell said his rationale for why he sat her down, he said that he explained to her what she had done wrong, warned her, and nevertheless she persisted, and that's why he had to silence her. That became a kind of rallying cry for people across the country who felt that the actions of the senator majority leader were inappropriate and sexist. And so the hashtag she persisted became a shorthand way for people to express their disagreement, their resistance, and to share a kind of feminist narrative about women speaking back to power.
Awesome, thanks, Nicole. So when I clicked on Nicole's hashtag she persisted, so let me back up and say hashtags were a hack. It was when Twitter was created, they hadn't expected the hashtag the way it functions now to function how it did. The person who created it he's a Twitter user still named Chris Messina. You can look him up. I think his bio says he is the inventor of the hashtag, which is kind of an interesting thing to think about. And essentially, you're creating a unique kind of text that when you search, it's going to come up, right? So this is a way to just string words together and have the Twitter's just existing search engine clump conversations together. And it clumps them in a way where you can see there's the top tweets, right? And so I can see proudly my California Senator Kamala Harris is one of the top tweets with the famous protest picture. I'm going to retweet that. That looks nice. And we can see the other people who are using the same hashtag that Nicole's using, right? There's a couple of ways that hashtags are organized in Twitter. And there's easier tools to look at. Again, TweetDeck, which I mentioned, we'll scroll these in an easier way, right? So we can see these are top tweets, and these are top because, as this one is, I was one of 3,000 other people who retweeted it, and there's almost 6,000 people who've liked it, and there's a bunch of people replying to it, right? And so we can see top tweets are based on both the time that they were sent as well as the kind of engagement that's a part of them, right? If you're looking to see the most recent tweets of hashtag she persisted, you're going to use latest. One thing you'll note is if it's a really popular hashtag like she persisted, you're going to see other advertisements and other people engaging in these conversations. So it becomes noisier. The more popular a hashtag is, the noisier it is, right? And this is one of the challenges that Twitter's had, right? And we can think about how that conversation's affected them as a company, right? Is bullying and kind of spamming in hashtags. So oftentimes you might have heard of a Twitter chat. The way a Twitter chat is going to work is you're going to have a hashtag that other people are going to be following. Scroll, good to see you. If you can mute yourself while we're talking, it'll be helpful on our end. So you're going to follow a hashtag like SLAM.edu, which is a much less quiet, it's a much quieter hashtag than she persisted, just because fewer people are using it. What you can see is there's some top tweets. There's a few of them where we don't have a senator joining our hashtag yet. And then you can see the latest, the most recent ones here. So the hashtags are a place to organize conversation. So one hashtag I'm going to encourage my other educator friends to join is EduColor. EduColor is a group of primarily public educators and researchers who are focused on solidarity and thinking through the needs of teachers of color and public schools. So again, you can look at the top spaces, and I find a lot of people that I follow and that are part of this movement, right? So you can follow both the account as well as key leaders within this group. So this is a hashtag that I regularly follow and stay on top of, right? And as an English teacher, I also follow the NCTE chat and hashtag literacies as other places to think through who's engaged in English conversations. We're going to follow up and create a resource for other people to think through and share other key hashtags that you're interested in. But these are just a few to get us started. The last thing I want to talk about before we pause in a moment is how you find and follow people, right? So first thing you do is, I think, going into hashtags that you like and seeing other people that you're interested in and following them that way, right? So I know that Mark is a leader within the English community, NCTE community. He's already following me, and apparently I am a jerk and haven't followed him back. So I'm going to follow him back now, right? So I found him through the NCTE chat, right? And I can see there's a lot of other people here that I should probably be following, and now I feel like a bad person because I'm not right now. Great. So that's one way you can do it. In the hashtags themselves, find the other people who are engaged in similar conversations to yourself, right? The other way you can do it is by searching for people. And so if you know someone's username, you could just search for it. Or I think I can just type in Nicole, right? So I already follow you, but this would be an easiest one to just do it that way, right? I could follow, and then there it is. It's running a little slow. And it goes that way. The last thing I want to talk about is the verification check mark. To do that, I'm going to look at another friend, Bud the teacher, Bud Hunt. So Bud is an amazing teacher, friend. Maybe he's a librarian. Who knows? Mysterious. So Bud has a blue check mark next to his name, and when you hover over it, it says it's a verified account. What that means is that someone from within the company of Twitter has verified that the person who is typing things on the Bud the Teacher app, the @Bud the Teacher account, is actually Bud Hunt. And so this is supposed to be a symbol to let you know that this is the actual person behind this account, right? And so you're supposed to be able to have a sense of security and knowing that this is real information coming from a real person, right? I want to pause though and think about the National Park Services and NASA and all of the larger government agencies that have created alt accounts and rogue accounts. There's a rogue NASA in response to Donald Trump's administration potentially not allowing them to send out information or not verifying his inauguration crowd size. So rogue NASA does not have that check mark, right? And And so we don't actually know who are behind these accounts, right? We can assume, we can make inferences that possibly this is somebody that is connected to NASA, but we don't know, right? And so this is an important media literacy thing to point out that's changing within Twitter, right? Because just like that, if we think about the National Park Service is silenced right now in terms of the kinds of information they can send out, what does that verification check mark mean, right? I think this is an important space for us to be considering as educators. Now, I don't know if anyone else on the Hangout has thoughts around some implications or conversations this could be filtering into our classrooms.
I'll just say really quickly that for those of you that are teachers that are thinking about using Twitter with your students, I've traditionally, with my students, sent out a permission slip at the beginning of the year for students' parents to sign if I'm going to do a full-on public Twitter hashtag. So you can think about, I know, Ontario, maybe the difference between a locked account and an open account. If you have an open Twitter account, then that means that anyone in the public can find you and could find any of your students or could find your hashtag and could intrude into the conversation. I use that as a teachable moment. I like to keep my class's Twitter public, but some of you that might have younger students or are not comfortable yet being on Twitter out in the wider world, you can actually create a community where you have your students create handles and you create a handle, and then you lock the community so that only people that you allow to follow you can see your tweets. And that can be kind of a scaffolding way to start with Twitter if you're not comfortable being fully public with your students.
It's a really good point. So what Nicole's talking about is if you go to your profile settings and to security and privacy, you can essentially click the protect my tweets, and the only people that will see your timeline are people that you've approved, right? They can request to follow you, but only if you've approved it will they see what you have. And this is oftentimes a really useful way to possibly make your classroom safe, right? If you wanted to create a closed community. I've oftentimes, when I've worked with students in out-of-school settings, we'll have one Twitter account that represents, for example, a group club, for example, and students can help construct those tweets, but it's not coming from an individual student also. So I think that's an important piece to consider. There's also, I think, the ways you control your information is probably really important. It's not probably, it is really important. So I would encourage you to spend some time looking at all of these pieces. Just for sake of time today, I'm not doing that. But even notifications and what you get and how they function is important. I'm going to pause and see if there's other key questions or things to talk about. I know TweetDeck is one of them. Robin or Shelby or Raul, are there other things that we should talk about with Twitter before we switch gears in a moment?
I just had a question. If there is, does TweetDeck also integrate Facebook, or do you have any apps that do both? Because when I find on some of my advocacy work, having to post in both places is just really exhausting to keep up with it. Thought you may have some ideas.
Yeah, that's good. There's a couple things that do. I think TweetDeck does. I haven't done it in quite a while. So let me see if I can get. So this is my TweetDeck. Is that showing up properly? I can see some thumbs up. So what TweetDeck does is it takes all of those different places that I was clicking through on Twitter. And there's other things like this, Hootsuite. There's other ones. Tweetbot, I think, is an app you can use. And essentially what this does is it allows me to see everything. It shows this is my timeline, and you can see it's moving on its own. I don't need to update it. You can see, I accidentally liked that person's tweet. That's cool. You can see these are notifications of people interacting with this. You can see my tweets. You can see my messages, whoops, which I scrolled past. You can see activity is just a noisy place that's not very useful. And then you can see different kinds of hashtags that I'm following. These just stay up to date. So Crit Code, comic education ones, Educolor, which I mentioned. There's critical librarians. I follow the Crit Lib. You can scroll through. The most recent one that I was following today is a friend was running a teach-in on the executive order, hashtag teach-in EO 2017. And just some really useful information there. You can see NCTE and SLAM here as well. So the good thing about a tool like TweetDeck, which is free, is you can basically, it slows down if you have as many hashtags as I do that you're following. But it's a useful way to just kind of see a lot of different information without having to click on a lot of places. If you're new to Twitter though, and you can see the egg over here, right? And you can see that this is probably a newer user. If you're new to Twitter though, there's nothing wrong with just using the homepage and probably an app. I'm looking at our time and realizing we're at about 30 minutes, so I just want to pause and see if there's any other last minute questions. We're going to add some resources to this YouTube page afterwards. Are there any other questions that we can answer?
If folks want to continue the conversation, what hashtag could they use to interact with us?
Nice work, Nicole. So we are using hashtag SLAM.edu. And just a reminder, we're going to be doing these 20 or 30-minute SLAM school sessions every 2 weeks. The next one Nicole's going to be leading is how to contact your congressperson and effective ways to engage in communication with people like that. I also want to say, if you are watching this, please get in touch if you have a tool or a resource that you want us to talk about, or you want to come on and talk about with us. We see this as an ongoing challenge, an ongoing battle for public education, and we need your help to organize and to connect with us. So again, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you at our next SLAM school, and we'll see you then. Nice job, everybody.
Yay.